Citizens of the United States of America. Most of you watching this video likely have no idea who I am, and for good reason. Like most of you, I'm just an average anonymous citizen of the United States of America. Like most of you, I'm sick of the way our government spends money that it does not have in an attempt to provide services at an ultimate cost that is easily more than twice what we would pay if we just bought it ourselves. Like most of you, I don't like seeing my fellow countrymen gunned down in the streets over confrontations that shouldn't even have to happen. Like most of you, I don't like being told what I can and can't do all the time. I don't mind some rules, but too much is too much. I know much of the nation is sick about hearing about politics. I don't blame you. But please, especially if that's you, just hear me out. The way our government was originally structured, it was intended that we as citizens would only have to even think about national politics maybe a few days out of the year. What the federal government was doing was not supposed to affect our daily lives. It shouldn't even have been something that we were really even aware of unless Congress needed to declare war on somebody. The point of this was to keep government from becoming intrusive, to protect the freedoms of the citizens of this country, and to restrict the ability of the government, especially the federal government, from controlling these citizens. Our government today clearly does not understand this concept. The IRS tells us how much of our money, our own income, we're allowed to keep. It tells us how we must run a charity, if we decide to do so. It tells us how we have to keep records of finances for any business, our personal finances, or whatever. The EPA tells us how we can use our own land, whether we can harvest rainwater in some places, whether we can or cannot build a building, and sometimes whether we can keep our own property that we have purchased ourselves. Sometimes whether we can just keep it. They can seize that sometimes. The National Security Administration and Homeland Security tell us what we can search for online without getting caught, or not caught, but questioned. They tell us what we can and can't say at an airport, or what we can bring on an airplane. Those things, especially in regards to the airports and the airplanes, should be the responsibility of the airports and the airlines, not the government. But various other departments and bureaus tell us what we're allowed to say in public without being charged with a hate crime or any other number of things. They tell us where we're allowed to defend ourselves, if at all, and in some states and cities, even how much soda we can buy in a single cup. Our money is taken from us, from companies, from individuals, from industries on the whole, on so many levels, it's impossible to know exactly how much we're even being taxed. If there are two things that our government does well, those two things are lying to us and structuring things in a way that makes it difficult to see exactly what is going on. There are some excellent people out there with the patience to sort through these issues and find all the hidden horrors in all the bills that Congress is passing, and I applaud those people. They are an extremely important part of today's political scene. But at the same time, I long for the day when those people are no longer needed for that purpose. Why? Because, like most of you, I'm sick of hearing day after day about all stupid ideas that our government decides to implement. Like most of you, I think that there are some simple, common sense solutions to the vast majority of the problems that we face as a nation. And I, like most of you, believe that those who are in power have failed too many times to provide any solution that's actually a solution. And that's why 2 years ago, I decided that I, Nick Borden, would run for president in an attempt to trigger a new kind of revolution. Definitely a nonviolent revolution. I don't think we've reached that point yet, and I pray that we don't. But this revolution, I want the ordinary, formerly anonymous citizens of this once great nation to rise up and take the reins and restore this nation to the glory that it once had. To facilitate this idea, I'm running under a new party banner, the Anonymous Party, which I created for those of you who have said to yourself, just as I have, any idiot could run this government better than the bunch of idiots that we have running it now. I say, do like I am, and put your money where your mouth is. Run for governor, for senator, for the House of Representatives, in state and local governments. Run for mayors. But don't run as Republicans or Democrats. Just run as anonymous citizens of your community, of the communities that you're a part of. Either run as an independent or run under the Anonymous Party banner. Most of the people, even in your communities, depending on its size, may not have heard about you. Make sure that when they do hear about you, they don't just hear about you and that you're part of a group, like a Republican or Democrat party. Make sure that they know about you. This is a nation made up of states, made up of communities of various sizes, of various mixtures of different types of people, who are all, at all these levels, supposed to be on the same team. I invite you on a journey with me to change this nation, to reunite it in a way that this division is no longer a problem. United, we can do this. Now, I have no misconceptions about how tall of an order this is. I have no misconceptions about how much work is involved, both in the campaign and in the actual job of the presidency, or even in any of the other jobs that I'm encouraging you to run for. I'm also aware that many of you, many who are watching or who hear of this idea, may think that it's absolutely crazy. And I can't argue that it's definitely different from what most of you are used to. I'm not going to dedicate my campaign to bashing other candidates, though, on either side. It's kind of pointless. It doesn't do any good. I may point out a few things where I disagree with them, or why I believe their ideas won't work, but bashing them by insulting them or digging up dirt on them to find out who had an affair with who or who cheated on their taxes, there's no real point to that. If they cheated on their taxes, this should come up sometime other than during a campaign. It shouldn't be something that's brought up by an opponent in that race. My hope is that my campaign, even if not actually successful in getting me elected president, will be successful in waking up the nation to the possibility that they can run the nation's government. We do not need big names like Bushes and Clintons or even Pelosi's or Reeds. These names have been permanent fixtures in the federal and high-level state governments for far too long. One should really question how much they've contributed to the problems that we now have, or the solutions. Because I have a feeling they've contributed considerably more to one than the other. Why or how have they and others been able to cause so much damage? I admit it took me a little while to figure out both of these answers myself. About 3 years ago, I thought long and hard about what was wrong with our government and how to fix it. I tried to figure out what single core issue was actually causing the most damage. And when I first launched my campaign, I believed that it was money in politics. And I still believe that's a problem, which is why I'm not accepting any. Yeah, I do not accept campaign contributions. Why? Is it because I have billions of dollars like Donald Trump? No. In fact, like most of you, I make less than $50,000 a year. I just don't want to owe anything to anyone. I want your votes, not your dollars. I want your support and your input, your suggestions, your concerns, not your monetary influence. I don't need to jump in bed with the Koch brothers or the George Soroses in order to get into an office. I need to convince the American people that I'm what's best for this nation. And that's what I intend to do. My campaign is going to be 99% based on YouTube videos. And the rest, I might be able to make a few public appearances, give a few public speeches, possibly even do a debate if they have one and let me participate. Who knows what'll happen between now and then. But I don't think that money should play that big of a role. So my entire campaign budget is probably not going to exceed about $2,000 for the entirety of my campaign, which started 2 years ago. To this point, I don't even think I've spent $500. And the vast majority of that is actually on the party website, which is more for the party. I mean, granted, right now my YouTube videos are the majority of the content there, but the party page is for anyone campaigning for an office. So any of you who decide that you want to run under this banner, feel free to request a section of that page, and I can put your videos up there as well, or figure out a way for you to put them up yourself. It's not just about me. This is about the nation and what's best for the nation as a whole. But elections are supposed to be based on who has two things: good character and good ideas. In our current batch of politicians, very few have either, and fewer still have both. And even where those few are, there are still the shackles of monetary influence and what are often referred to as party handlers. We have two primary political parties in this country. I'm sure the vast majority of you are aware that those are the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. There are many opposing beliefs between these two sides. The problem with the system, though, is that almost no one outside of these parties ever gets elected, because these two parties have created a system in which everyone believes that a third party or independent candidate has absolutely no chance of winning at all. But they've also created a system where there isn't much room for differences of opinion within a party. If you're a Republican, you automatically are supposed to be pro-life. You're supposed to be for lower taxes. You're supposed to be pro-business. You're supposed to be a handful of other things. If you're a Democrat, you're supposed to be pro-choice. You're supposed to be for more government-provided services to help the poor. There's tons of things on both sides that you're supposed to be for, and if you're not for all of those, you're considered a bad Democrat or a bad Republican. And if you don't agree with at least the vast majority of these positions and actively vote in support of that party's position, they'll find someone else. And it doesn't necessarily mean, in many cases, that the majority of the American public agrees, or even the majority of the American public that votes for that party agrees. What's worse still is that even though their platform may say one thing, that they're for this or for that or against this or against that, they frequently vote the opposite direction as a party, and then try and explain it away as some technicality. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. But as a voter, you really should be able to look at every issue prioritize those issues as they rank in importance to you personally, then evaluate the candidates according to these issues, and select the candidate that best matches what you want. Then you should be able to vote for that candidate, at least in a first-round election. The way elections were originally structured when our founding fathers laid this out was everybody voted for who they wanted after debates and whatnot, and if nobody gained a majority vote in the first time that they did an election, they would narrow out all but a certain number of candidates and have the election again, but with fewer names on the ballot. So, take our existing Republican primaries. Right now we have 17 Republican candidates. If that was the entire field for the presidential race, then going into the actual election, which is how it should be, then as the current polls would suggest, Donald Trump would likely come out with the most votes. However, he doesn't have anywhere near 50%. I believe it's like 34 or something like that right now, which is still a pretty significant percentage, but it's not a majority. So they would probably narrow out everyone but him, Jeb Bush, and maybe Scott Walker, I believe, is the other one in the top three. So they would limit it to 3 choices. And then the next election, you wouldn't have 17 to choose from, you'd have 3. So while the one that you wanted most might not be on there, at least you got to vote for them, and at least you got real input as to who might get to be president. Now, if that's the case, the majority of the American people did not agree with you. But at least at this point, you still have another chance, once proven to you that that candidate will not make it, then you can vote for your second or third or fourth pick, or whoever's still left. Not everyone will get to have their candidate make it to the final vote. But that's the way it was supposed to work. And primaries to some degree do this, but the media is too involved in it. They have too much input, and the parties themselves kind of try and help weed things out. And because right now, for example, a lot of the Republicans, the establishment Republicans, are trying to weed out Donald Trump. They don't like him. And they may have good reasons for it, they may not. I suspect that some of them might be good reasons and some of them aren't. My point is, though, that the parties have a tendency to want to tell us who is quote-unquote electable. There was a term that was kind of thrown around a lot when Mitt Romney was going for the Republican nomination in the primaries in 2012. All the other candidates were somehow not electable like Mitt Romney was. It's this undefined, elusive thing that somehow or another made him more appealing than the rest of the candidates, was just that he was electable, which clearly was not the case, since he still lost to a president that already had a declining approval rating. So this process, though, of primary races really is to do nothing more than convince us that no one can beat the other side's candidate other than the mushiest, most easily manipulated candidate on our own side. When Barack Obama was running in 2008 as well, Republicans put John McCain and Sarah Palin up against him. Now, the first problem with that was John McCain. Yeah, he's a war hero, and I'm not going to criticize him for that or anything that he did while he was in the service. Outstanding citizen in many ways. But his biggest problems, perhaps, were that he listened too much to advice from his campaign advisors, and he ended up not really appearing to stand for anything. He allowed himself to be turned into a cookie-cutter candidate, and therefore he had no real appeal. Sarah Palin was pretty much the opposite. She wanted to take a stand on everything. Even many things that didn't even really matter, she wanted to make a big deal about. Which in some ways was better, but also kind of destroyed the continuity in the president-vice president ticket. So she went against the advice of her handlers and did her own thing as often as possible. And that much I can kind of support. However, there really wasn't much else I was on her side about. I voted for him anyways, though, which I hate to admit. Despite not really being happy about my choices, because I was convinced that my vote wouldn't matter otherwise. And with Romney in 2012, I paid a lot more attention to the primaries during that one, but there was still a handful of candidates that I liked, but in the end, Mitt Romney, supporter of national health care, ended up with the nomination. I was kind of troubled by how he bragged about his mass care program as if he'd actually accomplished something, because Massachusetts had a state-run healthcare system funded by tax dollars that appeared to be doing well. What he didn't actually tell us, though, was that much of the funding for that came from federal tax dollars, which, if every state was getting the same amount of money per citizen, we'd be going into debt probably at least 3 times faster than we already are. So during the campaign process, political parties, campaign finance, and advisors, campaign handlers, whatever you want to call them, they restrict our options. They make it so that we really don't have any choice. Between them and the news media, we're somehow convinced every time that a particular candidate is our only hope to beat the other side, even though he might not be what we really, really want. He's our only choice to defeat the other side. Like, who are we at war against? We may have differences of opinion, but if there's really a war between Democrats and Republicans that we need that desperately to win one side over the other side, perhaps we're fighting the wrong wars. However, the real damage, though, as I was just hinting at, may actually occur after the elections. Because once in office, there's a chasm between the parties, which very few are willing to cross on much of anything. There's a position that most of you are probably aware of called the majority whip or the minority whip, whose job it is to just make sure that everyone in whichever party votes according to that party's preference, like platform, or the way that whoever's running the party, like I know the Republican RNC chairman is Reince Priebus, I think is how you pronounce his name, which I've gotten so many emails from him that I pretty much have just come to ignore them, because every single time all it is the Democrats are doing this now, and with your support, donation of however much money, we can finally defeat them. As if $20 from me is actually going to, do any real good. All it's going to do is line the pockets of politicians and help get them more power to do things that I really actually don't support. They just use an issue or two to try and get my donation. But anyways, the majority whip position, what they're really doing is saying, well, you were elected as a Republican and the Republicans want this, therefore you will vote the way we want, or we'll make sure you don't get reelected. If the position of majority whip or minority whip enforced the will of the people, that'd be one thing, but it doesn't. It enforces the will of the party and those who control the party. And I mean control the party, not just the high-level politicians in it. The people who actually control the party don't really appear to change, at least not often. But the Speaker of the House and Senate Majority Leaders are chosen in what I believe to be kind of an unfair method. Essentially, they're the people in Congress the most in line with their respective parties' goals. The Constitution outlines that a Vice President of the Senate should be chosen by the senators from amongst the senators, which is sort of what is done, problem is they just basically pick the majority leader to be the Speaker of the House, or the Senate Majority Leader. There's supposed to be a Speaker of the House and a Senate Majority, sorry, there's not actually supposed to be a Senate Majority Leader. There's supposed to be a Vice President of the Senate. The Vice President of the Senate doesn't really do anything different than everybody else in the Senate, except, according to the Constitution, and most people are not aware of this, the Vice President's job is supposed to be to sit in on Senate meetings and actually officiate them. He's supposed to be the President of the Senate. Now, I'm not going to say that no president in recent history has actually done this job, but I have not seen it. I haven't seen one time ever at all where the Vice President has even been present in a typical Senate session. Occasionally he's there for as some side speaker, but I've never seen them actually run it. Perhaps it's happened and I just haven't seen it, but the job of the Vice President, I think, has gone way off track. But the Vice President of the Senate is basically just supposed to step in if the Vice President of the United States is unable to perform the job of President of the Senate. So, while I have formed a political party, my party's platform is probably the simplest of any party ever. In fact, there's only 2 points on it. The first is to place significant restrictions on campaign finance that, in a sensible and useful as possible way, restrict any unreasonable influence of money in politics, at least as much as possible. Second is to bar from existence any party affiliations. Essentially, get rid of political parties. Once those 2 goals have been accomplished, the Anonymous Party will be disbanded, both because of the new law and because it's no longer needed. In the meantime, the party will still represent politics as they should be, because those are the only issues on which you must absolutely agree in order to be part of the party. So, like I said though, all other issues are up for debate. The choices would then be left to the American people. While this is all that is necessary for membership to the Anonymous Party, my positions on the rest of the issues are still very much relevant. I mean, why elect anyone who wants to change one thing if they have either no plan for anything else, or worse, terrible plans for everything else, right? So, since my initial announcement of my campaign near the end of 2013, I have been slowly producing videos that outline my positions and ideas on various subjects. I don't get as much time to work on these as I would like, as I have sort of 3 jobs: a full-time job, a part-time job, and a rental property. I used to have a 4th job, but I was finally, thankfully, able to quit that because one of my part-time job finally gave me a lot more to do. But these videos are available on the party website, www.anonymousparty.org. My videos can be a little dry at times, but hopefully as I gain some steam, somebody out there will decide to summarize them in a fair but condensed and maybe even easier to understand way. I do believe wholeheartedly, though, that I can do the job of president, or in just about any other job in government, and I can do it just as good or better than anyone holding any elected office in our federal government right now. Like most of you, I believe that it's time for a real change for the better. Like most of you, I'm tired of being lied to. Like most of you, I'm tired of being walked on. Like most of you, I do not run a big company or have a family history in government where I've been big and powerful for pretty much my entire life. Like most of you, I was not handed anything. I have bills to pay. I have a job to go to and a family to care for. This is why I need your vote. This is why I believe that I can make a difference for most of you. It's because, like I said, I am like most of you. Our Constitution states that the government is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. I think it's easiest to make the claim that our current government is not really for the people, because it constantly does things that destroy the people, that enslave the people, or at a bare minimum, irritate the crap out of the people. And I think one of the main things is, or the main causes of this is that most of our politicians aren't really of the people. They might be citizens of this country, but the vast majority of them have never really lived like most of the people. And that's where me and you are different. We are the people. We're the ones who our founding fathers had really intended on running this country. That is why I'm doing this. That is why I started this party, so that the people could run this country. And we, not them, are the people.